All right, it's 1 o'clock, and I'd like to have a chance to have an opportunity to speak to you on my own in a passion that I have and that I hopefully will be bringing here to Campbell University in the future through classes and programs. And that is the area of the music business. The session that I'll be doing this session is focused on alternative careers in music, and I'll get a little bit into that as we move forward. But let me share my screen I've been helping everybody else, and we'll kind of get this going for myself now. There you go. And all righty. So a little bit about myself, which brings us to the clinic. Is I went to the Crane School of Music and studied music education, but I also studied the music business. I had a very fond passion for doing something a little bit beyond teaching, and I had an interest in broadcasting and production. And I grew up not on Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, as many people think all us professors are, but I was hugely inspired by people like Earth, Wind, and Fire, the group Chicago. The Airmen of Note was the Air Force band. I lived in Niagara Falls, New York, that was in residence often in Niagara Falls, and huge inspiration for me. So that commercial music side was really big for me. In my undergraduate as well, in my business program, I did 2 internships, one in instrument repair for 2 summers, and also for 2 summers, I did it in professional broadcasting, and it was a pop music station. It was Kiss 98.5, and I worked with the PR and on-air personalities and got a great experience through that. My master's program, I took my interest in another avenue. At the time, we in the late '90s, American Online was a big thing. CompuServe was a big thing, and these are ways that you can get online. And it was about the time that schools became very active with technology. One big avenue was one computer to a classroom and how effectively you can use it. Riding that wave, I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, again studying music education and instrumental conducting, probably the most incredible experience I ever had. But I also studied computer-assisted instruction in music. A mouthful of words, but an incredible opportunity and experience I had. For some of you old guys out there, if you remember the idea of HyperCard, that was the mainstay back in the day. And for us new folks now, HyperCard turned into coding in the modern era, or creating apps. Moving on, I pursued I did many years in teaching, both at the high school, middle school, beginning band levels. And I decided to take a fork in the road in the late '90s. I was approached by a person who owned a national music store, believe it or not. And many people thought I took the right decision at the time, and the experience was amazing. But I got a phone call one day that said, we'll offer you more money, we'll give you a car, and we'll even pay the gas and the insurance for that car if you come work for us, and you can leave at any time, although I had to hand the car back if I ended up leaving. And I took that opportunity, and I left teaching, and I joined the music industry, and I worked for a music service. Got heavily involved with the rental process, the retail process, the service process, and lessons, and kind of climbed that corporate ladder, being a product specialist, working closely with Yamaha and Selmer and Jupiter and Van Doren, and LeBlanc at the time. LeBlanc was a separate company now owned by Selmer now. And I rode that wave for about 8 years before I became involved with another familiar company called Guitar Center. Guitar Center ended up being a part of buying out the company I worked for. And at that time, I had a choice, and I took the choice of going back to teaching. But again, I took that love and that passion and experience in the industry, and again carried it forward with me. Soon after that, I pursued my doctorate at the University of Florida, and how again that builds again into my music business area is I had the chance to work in an area at the University of Florida called Digital Worlds. So on top of finishing my doctorate, writing my dissertation, heavily involved with the Gator bands and the wind band area, I was also very lucky enough to work in Digital Worlds, where they were at the cusp of online teaching, creating videos, effective videos for teaching, especially in the area of physics, and also in the development of apps related to music and the timing of long distance education. As we all know and experience now, that there's this little bit of delay that we experience, whether we're using Skype or Zoom and such. And I was a media specialist for them, and particularly with music, as I was working with the Florida State Education Department, developing media that they were using in testing at the time. So with that said, like I said, moving on, finishing my doctorate, I ended up teaching the music business area at the universities I have been teaching at. And along the way, and including at that point, taking students to an incredible conference that occurs in late January, and hopefully we'll be blessed with the opportunity of getting to that point again. But it's called the NAM Conference, the National Association of Music Merchants. And I've not only participated that during my career as an industry rep, but also have taken students to that conference to find jobs, to experience the industry, and even find internships. And these are all things that I'll be talking about in my presentation here. Lastly, recently in the last couple years, I've had the incredible honor and a blessing to be a fellow with the College Music Society and NAM combined, a collaborative, in being a part of a group that looks at higher education, training students going into the industry and being more aware of what's available, which kind of falls into what I'm going to be talking about. And that is, let me switch this to the next. There we go. A lot of times when people think about going into music, especially in high school, they think that, you know, their choices are either teaching, performing, composing, or they have the image of being in the music industry kind of behind, as you see on the bottom of the screen, behind that big board right there. And as I always say, that is probably the most popular of being in the music industry that we experience when people think that they don't want to teach. And that was my dream as well. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity of being given a scholarship to attend the Berklee School of Music. And I was very close in pursuing that. Although one thing I did find out, even though Berklee is an incredible resource, I've actually gone back and taken classes there as a professional, that many people go to Berklee. It's a commercial school for the most part. Many people, not all, but many people go to Berklee and they don't finish necessarily with a degree. but they gain enough experience to pursue what they want to do in the industry. I've had friends go to Berkeley and come out not finishing necessarily 4 years, but becoming incredible players. But not everybody wants to be a player. Some people say, you know, I love playing, but I just don't see myself as like the next Wynton Marsalis or the Branford Marsalis or the Eddie Van Halen. But they want to be involved in it. The same thing, you know, with composition when you go to Berkeley as well. Great composition area, but you know, when they start making it and getting their making treads in, sometimes a lot of times they don't finish. But they still take that incredible skill that they earn and start going into the industry. So, which leads, you know, to the big thing about the music industry is there is so many opportunities in the music industry that not necessarily is teaching, which obviously I admire and still involved in education and believe in as it's, you know, the foundation of everything that we do. It doesn't have to be composition. You don't have to be writing the next hit song, but so many careers are involved in putting that hit song together, especially today when, you know, we see a lot of writers and composers and performers doing this independently now through other means. And then the other thing is, again, like I said, you don't have to we're at a time where you don't have to be behind one of those big boards. A lot of those big boards now can exist right in your laptop. There are many open source things that you can be a great writer, composer, songwriter, and put something out there. And again, as far as being a performer, the one thing I will divulge is being an educator in higher education and meeting so many amazing people. Dr. Ray, you know, just coming off his session, listening to his recordings, totally inspiring. Listening to his recordings is amazing. But it's amazing once you get into the industry, how many people who don't even have nearly as much of that talent that is still making it because there are ways to get around it with great ideas. One, for instance, is, you know, we have a lot of great vocalists out there. And, if, you know, when I want to hear a great vocalist, you know, I think of Broadway. I think of, you know, the opera and things like that. I don't necessarily think a lot about the pop music and the rock music, even though I have my people that I love listening to. But there's so many things out there that can kind of tweak our voice to be in tune for people to succeed. And it's used more than we think. And it doesn't, you don't necessarily have to be the best to succeed as a performer, but the better you are, you know, obviously there are different ways to get there. So, you know, the other thing I like to talk about, and this was another thing I was talking with Betsy Williams yesterday in our session when we talked about students transitioning from high school to college and making a decision of what they want to do. And number one, don't worry about if you don't know exactly what you want to do. As I always tell my students, find two things. One, the most important is, what are you passionate about? And if you're passionate about music, that's probably why you're listening to my session right now, maybe other than going over to Bojangles for a chicken sandwich, which if you are, bring me back one too. I haven't had lunch yet. So, a lot of us, you know, let me back up. Pick your passion. Think about if you have to do something 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. To me, I want to be doing something I love. And for me, music is my thread to my career. And that's why everything I do, revolves around music. On the other hand of it, I'm a parent and I get it. And I'm not trying to put parents down or anything, or guidance counselors or anybody down out there at all. But usually uh, moms and dads, again, I might be guilty of this too, obviously a little biased and otherwise, but in guidance counselors, they usually send you in other directions that do what? Have the dollar signs. And a lot of times this is, focusing folks into the medical field, pharmaceutical, law degrees, engineering, business, and even obviously computers and tech. All these areas all have, if you're successful, have great paychecks. And obviously we hear about the successful ones. You get to do a lot of travel, and supposedly we have job security. Now the job security, is if you are in it now. And if you're in high school and college, it's not about the now, it's about what's coming next. It's about the future. Travel, I tell you, my mom kids with me all the time, that I've been a teacher, as she sees me more of a teacher than in the music industry by a long shot, because I've never left it. But as a teacher, I've traveled all around the world. I've been in Europe and Netherlands and England and Euro Disney and all that, not because I was in the business area, it was because I was a teacher. And I was involved in the band programs. I went to the Olympics in 2012 at the University of Florida Gator Bands. I performed in Carnegie Hall, not because of my business areas, because I was involved in a wind band that performed there. And in the mid 90s, I was involved with the International Bands of America, where we took 200 students to perform all over Europe, Euro Disney, at the base of the Eiffel Tower and stuff like that. So, travel becomes with opportunity. You just get involved. And, money, like I said, I think that's the number one reason why a lot of people are directed in these 5 fields that you see on the screen right now. And, I'm not going to tell you that money's not important, because the last time I tried to pay off my credit card with being a nice guy, it just didn't work. And they still want that cold hard cash. But if you can combine, there are many ways to combine your passion and many of these areas. And that's really what I wanted to allude to. I kind of divide it up into 4 different areas. This particular graphic right here is actually part of a manuscript that has that's obviously copyrighted, but is going to be in the future. It's in a manuscript that I'm putting together in the future. And I look at career paths in the music industry divided up into 4 areas. And again, I'm not necessarily talking about teaching, producing, performing, and composing. So I look at it as hard goods, soft goods, interactive goods, and people and culture. So as I describe this, what I want you to do is kind of understand that mix between your passion in music and those 5 areas that we just talked about: medical, law, engineering, business, and tech, which are usually the more popular that we go into and we go into school. So the hard goods, again, we're talking about retail. Retail management, it could be anything from owning your own music store to working with a guitar center, working with an Edwards Music. Retail is usually split up into 3 different areas for success, and that's the rental of horns. And many of us who are musicians probably rented a horn when we were young. The other part is a service, which we'll talk about in a second. And the other one is the literal hard goods that I was involved with, and selling and being involved with product. And that goes on to manufacturing. There are so many opportunities in manufacturing with all the big companies, whether it's Selmer, Yamaha, Jupiter, and the whole gamut. If your passion is in guitar, there are so many opportunities to get involved in manufacturing in guitar It's just unbelievable. Even if you love to be involved in woodworking, the guitar manufacturing area is really big in embracing that, because that's what it really involves, especially when it deals not only with guitars, but violins, cellos, basses in that string area that we call a luthier. And again, I'll bring that up here in a second. Entrepreneurship. Sometimes we don't put entrepreneurship enough with the music industry, but it's guys like Steve Jobs that were true visionaries when it came to music and entrepreneurship. And that's a result of the iPod and the iTunes store. And back in the early 90s and 80s, when I was an undergrad in the music business area, one of the things that Dr. Koval, one of my longtime, most sought after professors, had us do is think 20, 30 years ahead of time, and where do you think the consumption of music would be? And at that time, you got to remember, in 1988, 1985, CDs were the hot and heavy thing. You know, we sat there as a class and predicted one day, and call this crazy if you will, but our class sat there and brainstormed, and we said, you know, one day you'll be able to walk into a store and there'll be a kiosk, and instead of buying an album, I'll get to choose what music that I would like to walk away with on something. We knew it wouldn't be a CD. It would be something that we would have that we can put this on. And as gray as that was, we were convinced. And, you know, now I think 30 years later, you know, what do I carry with me every single day but this strange device that is not only my music device now, but it's my communication device, whether I'm texting or calling. So, you know, think of that entrepreneurship. I've had students who really, you know, questioned whether this is something they want to get into in my courses. And usually I would teach an intro to music business, and entrepreneurship is a main theme. And as much as they didn't think they were a part of it, by the end of the course, that's where their taste buds were, because they're like, I can create the next best thing. And many of my students had amazing ideas. And my agreement with them is that they can pass the class if I get 10% of their success in the future. So a little kidding aside, but I'm still waiting for my paychecks. Anyways, the last one obviously goes into product innovation. Entrepreneurship can exist not only in a business sense, creating stores, creating services, but creating tangible things that I can hold, you know, being the person who creates the next type of phone or device that we're going to use. So that's hard goods. So all of a sudden you're seeing, wow, there are so many areas just in hard goods. So how about soft goods? Soft goods I consider are looking at that legal side. You know, there are huge amounts of people in law that specialize in copyright. And copyright exists all around us. Copyright exists helping composers. Copyright exists when we're getting music out to people. Matter of fact, every time that you walk into a store, a restaurant, a coffee shop, an ice cream shop, anything that has music, they're dealing with copyright, and they have to pay a license to be able to play that music. Major companies like BMI, ASCAP are huge areas where people can work in the music industry and be involved in the legal aspect, not only one-to-one with a musician and a composer, but with the larger gamut of copyright. Software, you know, we're seeing it every day. We go to the app store and there's tons of new apps and opportunities when it comes to software to develop things and consuming music and creating music. Marketing. You know, back in the day when I think we all watched TV, I'm one of those weird guys that don't have cable, and I think I'm becoming more the norm than not the norm. But you know, back in the day when we used to listen to commercials a lot, writing a jingle for marketing was huge. But marketing in the music industry is huge, not only in the actual music itself, but marketing hardware. So marketing instruments, marketing Selmer. You know, I'll admit, working with educators all the time, not putting them down by any means, because I have my favorites as well. But we have a lot of educators just are totally sold on a particular brand. And, you know, might put down one brand over another is because they have learned that the brand is reliable. And that's why they keep relying on it, especially with their students. And I totally get that. But there are a lot of younger manufacturers and products out there that could be just as good and maybe a little bit more innovative and just haven't had its time. A company that has really come along in the last decade and more is a company called Jupiter. When Jupiter first came into play, nobody wanted to touch those instruments. But it needed its time. It needed its opportunity to prove itself in the market. And now many people rely and think Jupiter is a great brand name. And a lot of it has to do with marketing. Another great story for marketing is, I know it's going to date myself, but is what a VCR and a beta machine is. Back in the day, there were two opportunities to record video on tape, and one was VHS and one was beta. Beta, we look back, was definitely better quality, but Sony took off with the marketing on VHS, and that's what succeeded. And the majority of us went on using VHS. Although now we don't use any of it anymore because we're using our computers. And lastly, I brought it up before, instrument repair I consider a soft good. There are few schools for repair in our country right now. And I tell you, just being handy and being able to work with your instruments. You know, Dr. Ray again in his session was talking about these little tools. If that's your thing and that's what you love to do and you like to do that, you know, stores take in apprentices all the time. Why? Because there's not enough people attending schools for repair. Red Wing in Minnesota is probably the top one in the country. And again, I'll just disclose, many people don't even graduate from Red Wing because they get jobs so quick in instrument repair. Moving on to our last two modules here, interactive goods. I think we all agree that esports and gaming is huge. As a matter of fact, the composing area is massive. Massive, and composers are diving for opportunities to compose in video games because basically, you know, people are making money the more people play the game. So there's a great opportunity to not even build or composing music for games, but showing how they can interact. Publishing is still a thing. You know, as a band director, we're still buying music, whether it's from a composer or a company, or books. And now ebooks are a really big thing. Many colleges are looking at what we call OER, or public domain opportunities, or very inexpensive opportunities. Rather than buying the physical thing, buying an electronic interactive textbook concept. So that is a huge thing coming forward. Artist relations. This exists in every company, Selmer, Yamaha, all the accessory companies. Each one of these companies has a person or people that actually work with the artists that represent the product. If you go to Yamaha in their website, you can go to the artists that play it. There's people, like I said, a person that manages those people and the products that they play. and that's called artist relations. A very cool job, and a great way to work in the industry. And lastly, a lot of people tend to forget these three areas, and they're huge, and people don't consider them careers, and they are significant careers in the music industry. And I call this area people and culture. Number one is on my list there is worship. And there are many worship pastors that make a living serving as pastors in churches, not only leading groups, but being behind the scenes. I have a very dear friend at the church that I've been a part of in Georgia for many, many years. And not only has he been significant in my development in my faith, but he has been he is incredible putting the whole production of the services online. And who would know that that has now taken over the presentation of our church services, when I'll admit, as I've had a chance to take career opportunities, I kind of had a guilty pleasure of staying with my church back in Savannah, Georgia. And I always felt kind of guilty not, and I did, but I didn't attend as much locally. And now it's a norm. We all go to our church services online because of the situation that we're in. And that those productions, in many cases, are responsible because of those folks that are in worship and have music production experience in the back. The next thing is therapy. Therapy in music is massively significant. Major certifications at the graduate level are being used. Our own Dr. Wilson is a great resource and advocate for drummings and therapy. Therapy without using medicine is becoming more and more of an interest. And music is very powerful. And with the right conditions such as memory, elderly, feeling good, anxiety, just touching on a couple areas that music is so powerful that they actually use it as a form of medicine. And it has been proven through research and is an active area where people can go and perform. Many of our people who simply play guitar, they don't have to be the Eddie Van Halens. They can just simply comp chords and just enjoy sharing. These are people that can do the same thing walking through a hospital, in a hospice area, making people feel good, making them appreciate, where they are, not necessarily what they can't do, but what they can do. But that's all part of music therapy. And I'm not one to be the expert on it, but a huge area for careers. And then lastly, world music. World music, I look at not only as, playing pans and playing the non-traditional instruments that we might find in world music ensembles, but in event management. Think about world music in going to like a Polish festival or an Italian festival or an African American festival or a Hispanic festival. Somebody's behind the scenes coordinating that type of world music so everybody can appreciate it and be exposed to it. And like I said, a huge area for career opportunities. So, see if I can move my slide forward. Here we go. So the next thing is, hopefully you're seeing this whole new gamut of things that are out there to be involved with. Now the point is, okay, how do I do this? I'm excited. Show me the way. Show me the way. Well, first of all, go to school, and take that path. If you want to do the medical path, do the medical path. Become, go into nursing or something like that. Electrical engineering, chemical engineering, pre-law, and all that type of stuff. But consider minoring, if not double majoring, in music. That's the first way you could do that in going into higher education. But if you look at the screen, now that you got it, so who do I ask? What do I do? Where do I go? How do I get there? And when will I know? This graphic is probably the best way that I've kind of put that into it. Number one, you got to make the decision to pursue it. Okay. And that's the target. Okay. Get an idea, like Betsy Williams and I were talking about yesterday at the session. And I tell you, if you're a Campbell student or a future Campbell student, go to our academic area and see some of our counselors. They are amazing. And some of the things that we talked about last night just fed into it. But Betsy was talking about make a decision to pursue, if not something specific, but an area. If you know you love medical and you love music, head in that direction, okay? And that leads you to the second thing, invest in knowledge. And that means, you made a decision to pursue it. You applied to college. Now I'm going to study it. Now I'm going to experience music at another level. Now I'm going to experience this medical area and take it to another level. And you might decide that it's not what you want to do, and you decide that, you know what, I kind of like the law thing better, or I like the engineering thing better. Ms. Williams said that between 70 and 80% of students change their majors 3 to 4 times during their undergrad. And it's not a bad thing, okay? It's a good thing. And the thing is, when you go to college, you are exposed to so many things. That's why people end up changing, because like, man, that person has a passion for that, and I want that passion. And that's why you see a lot of people changing. So invest in the knowledge, and then physically take part. And this is something that, you're going to hear a lot about when you get into your undergrad and we do it in education, and it's called student teaching. But even if you're not in education, physically take part and pursue an internship. I cannot recommend internships enough. Or volunteer, or if you're lucky enough, try to find a part-time job, whether it's in a music store or volunteer at a hospital if you're thinking about therapy and combining those two. And the reason I mention that, it gets you physically involved. Again, I'm going to go back to Miss Williams yesterday. When she was in high school going into college, she wanted to be a nurse until she volunteered and realized she didn't like being around blood. Now, being a nurse and not liking blood, there might be a little bit of a problem right there. So being involved in an internship is so important, just like the student teaching is for education. I don't look at student teaching as, a pass, a thing that they have to pass. I look at student teaching as the last qualifying opportunity for them to, do I really love doing this? Because I'm going to be doing, what do I want to do this for the rest of my life? So myself, I not only did internship or student teaching, I volunteered to work for school musicals with elementary school students. Again, I did several internships at a professional radio station because I thought radio would be my thing. And I also took jobs at music stores, and then I also took an apprenticeship for 2 summers as a repair technician. I immersed myself. I physically took part in all those areas I wanted to get involved with. Now, I'll tell you, my first coming out of high school is I wanted to be behind one of those boards. I wanted to be the next David Foster. And if you don't know who David Foster is, I'm just old. Look him up. David Foster is responsible for groups like Chicago, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Whitney Houston, and so much more. But I took a class and I volunteered in studios, and I was just like, I didn't feel it fit. And again, I started to look where I was going to fit more and more. So physically taking part. And then when you're in those areas, then you get to build this network. If you took Freddie Green's session yesterday from entitled Legit to Jazz, he talked a lot about how he got to Disney. Was not that he was a nobody, it's just because he was meeting people along the way, and they saw how he played and they said, hey, you should try this. And now his network keeps building, and sometimes he doesn't even have to audition, he just gets the call because the network knows him. But being involved in internships and being involved in part-time jobs and being involved in volunteering will build that network. And not only will you be able to ask questions and make decisions about whether you really want to be there, but people are going to start realizing if you're effective in those areas. And that was how I actually got into the music industry, because I was teaching and I was working with a store when it came to rentals and such. And the owner of that company saw how effective I was with people and how I communicated with people. And that's how I got that phone call. I exposed myself to more people. The right person saw me. And even without an extensive conversation, I got that phone call. And let me tell you, for 8 years, not having to own a car, driving a fairly new car, not paying for gas and not paying for insurance, it was a hard habit to break. Matter of fact, that's a great tune by Chicago, by the way. Anyways, moving on, building that network. Next, take roles in your network as you move on. Now, these steps are not day by day, month by month, but we're talking over time, over years, okay? And what I mean by take roles in your network, be involved in the professional societies. As a band director, I belong to the College Band Director Society, the College Music Society, the National Association of Music Merchants I've been a part of for many, many, many years. My local state music educators, my state band directors, all of these, everything you can name, whether you're a saxophone player, there is a saxophone society. As a trumpet player, the Trumpet Society, the National Band Association. Okay, these are all things, and especially as students, many times your memberships are FREE, free, because they want to get you young folks involved. And then when you actually become a professional, then you actually have to pay the full membership, which is still worth every penny, which again, take a role means being involved. When I was a teacher in New York, I was a second vice president, first vice president, and a president-elect of the New York State Band Directors Association. In many of the societies I get involved with, I assist with their conferences. I participate in executive boards. That just builds your network, not only being more involved, but more people will get to know you without you even knowing it. And those are, again, where opportunities will happen. And then the last one is where we start making the loop happen. Career decisions. You're going to see as you go through this target or this graphic here, you're going to have a lot of opportunities in careers. And I have to say, I have been completely blessed with the opportunity of not only being in education, but having the opportunity to be in the music industry. And most importantly, having the opportunity to make a choice where I wanted to be. When I was in the industry, I completely loved it and embraced it. And I thought it was incredible. It was such an education. But there's one thing that I missed. I missed working with students. And I have a passion for working with students and seeing them succeed. And I happen to use music as the thread in my career to do that. And I really missed it. And when it came to the point where if you remember in the beginning of my session, I talked about when there was a buyout situation, I had a choice. I could stay and be a part of that organization, or I could leave. And I was blessed with the opportunity to have those two choices, because many people didn't have those two choices. And I chose to go back to education. And that's when I went back to teaching and pursued my PhD. And again, I didn't look at it was a waste of time. I look at it was a gain of time, because now I share that in my classes when I teach music business and such. So if you see that career decision, as you start going to the outer circle, and actually when you become part of the inner circle, now you have the experience of all these elements of, if you watch, one of my favorite shows is Shrek. It's like peeling away the onions. You have experience of every layer of these onions. But guess what happens when you make it through those layers? Now you become an influencer, influencing more people to get involved. And that's kind of where I feel I am in my career. I've been had the opportunity of so many opportunities in the industry, K-12 education. I've done beginning band, middle school band, high school band. I've taught chorus, general music, and now my pure love to be in higher education and working at the college level, and especially athletic bands. I love sharing my experience, and most of all, I love sharing the experience and getting people involved with it. And that's where you would be too. And you will think back to, I remember the day when I made that decision to invest my knowledge, to take that internship, to build my network. And now when I see students going in that path, and I start helping that inner core, I start sharing. And you're always you might have a bad experience. I had some bad experiences in internships too. And when I look at my internships that I provide, I make sure that doesn't happen, because I remember what it was like. So I hope this graphic right here makes sense in following that path. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I hope my discussion here kind of opens some minds for some alternative careers, that you can use music as your passion, and maybe you make that choice to become involved in the music industry. So I know I took a whole lot of time, and I have a couple minutes left here, but since I'm in charge of the 2 o'clock session, I'm willing to squeeze to 5 o'clock. So if anybody wants to either put in the chat or to open up their microphone and ask me a couple questions, I am all ears, and I'll be less mouth. Anybody?
I'm just grateful for you sharing this module. I'm very interested in exposing my students to the different things that they can do just by being a part of their public education music program. Mm-hmm. And that's mainly my personal experience as well. I'm actually teaching at the school that I went to high school at. So I have a little bit more of a motivation to, like, guys, you don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and especially in your situation, they think music, and what do they think? I don't want to be a teacher. I don't know if I'm good enough to perform. So like I said, please give me a call. I'll do a Zoom for you with your students, and let's cross our fingers. Maybe I can even come and visit, and we can do this face to face. But sharing is the most important thing, and I'm all about making a spark. The earlier, the better.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, literally, am probably going to start off virtual, and just being a part of this has been great for me to kind of like, okay, this is doable. This is possible.
Absolutely. And please, to all the mom and dads and guidance counselors out there, uh, please take no offense by, how we want to encourage our kids to go into be a doctor or be a lawyer or be an engineer. I get it. My brother's an engineer. So, but, I just want to, provide everybody the opportunity that there are options, and there's money to be made. There's money to be made for sure. Anybody else? We are good. All right. Well, with that said, again, I will put my email in the chat. And if you are interested in continuing this conversation with your students, I am up for Zooming. I think I'm getting better at it. I've been on both sides now. And I really I wish you the best through our most difficult times now, and really hope I can up my step with you guys, especially here in North Carolina and beyond, because I would love to come out to different classrooms and not only talk about band, but hopefully you got a little bit of my passion for the music industry. So with that said, I will say adios. I'm going to step aside as a presenter until tomorrow at 4 o'clock when I do a session on sectional work and preparation. And our next session will be at 2 o'clock, where we'll be talking with Mark Drubel, who is the creator and owner of the Flip Folder app that we use here at Campbell University. I highly encourage you to participate. This is a way to take your music and go paperless, something I'm excited about, and I am sure you will be excited about. And for the next 3 hours, we're going to learn how we can use these great apps in our unfortunate time. And even when we get back, maybe